Thinking about a trip to Boston? You're in for a mix of rich history, fantastic food, and modern city charm. Whether you're strolling the Freedom Trail, catching a game at Fenway, or indulging in some incredible food in the North End, Boston has something for every kind of traveler. Hello, I'm Lindsey from Have Clothes Will Travel, and today's video is all about what to do in Boston. I've been fortunate enough to visit Boston multiple times over the years, and I'm sharing some of my favorite things to do in Boston. Number 1. Walk the Freedom Trail. The Freedom Trail is a must for history lovers. This 2.5-mile red brick path winds through Boston's most historic neighborhoods, connecting 16 incredible sites from the American Revolution. You'll start at the beautiful Boston Common and make your way to landmarks like the Massachusetts State House, Paul Revere's house, and even the legendary USS Constitution, ending at the impressive Bunker Hill Monument. It's the perfect way to explore Boston's history while taking in the city's charm. Number 2. Explore Faneuil Hall Marketplace. Faneuil Hall Marketplace stands as one of America's premier shopping and entertainment destinations in Boston's bustling heart and is a must-do for any trip to Boston. This is also a great stop along the Freedom Trail. This shopping paradise spans over 200,000 square feet and houses more than 40 local vendors and unique push carts. The Quincy Market is part of the Faneuil Hall Marketplace and is one of New England's largest food halls and houses 25 local eateries. Plus, world-renowned street performers bring the marketplace to life with their daily shows. These talented entertainers amaze crowds and range from musical performances to comedy shows to circus stunts and more. Number 3. Visit the Boston Public Garden. The Boston Public Garden is a gorgeous green escape right in the heart of the city, with beautifully designed landscapes and stunning seasonal flowers that make it the perfect spot to relax and unwind. Here you can find the iconic George Washington statue by Thomas Ball, 4 beautiful granite fountains, more than 600 native and imported trees, spectacular seasonal displays including 26,000 tulips each May, the serene 4-acre lagoon, which is perfect for photography, and a visit to the garden becomes even more magical with a ride on the beloved swan boats, a cherished tradition since 1877. The family owns and operates these pedal-powered boats that take visitors on delightful 15-minute tours around the lagoon. Number 4. Tour Fenway Park or enjoy a game at Fenway. Baseball history springs to life at Fenway Park. Even if you're not a fan of baseball, Fenway Park is a must-visit when in Boston. Every corner tells a story of America's favorite pastime. This legendary ballpark welcomes visitors with amazing tours and memorable game day experiences. Here are some of the exciting tour choices. You have the Classic Ballpark Tour, which is a 60-minute guided trip through the historic grounds. There's also the Pre-Game Tour, which is early access to the warning track and the Green Monster seats. And Fenway in 15. This is perfect for quick visits that showcase the nation's archives. Now, while tours are a great way to see Fenway, I highly recommend going to a Red Sox game if you can. Baseball traditions will come alive as you enjoy classic ballpark treats and join thousands of fans singing Sweet Caroline in the 8th inning. The park's unique features make every visit special, from the red seat marking Ted Williams' longest home run at 502 feet, to Bleacher Bar, which is a bar situated beneath the bleachers at Fenway Park and offers incredible views of the game. Number 5. Stroll through Beacon Hill. Beacon Hill's charming streets feature gaslit lamps that light up one of America's most picturesque neighborhoods. The narrow cobblestone streets and Federal-style row houses of this historic district show Boston's elegant past. Beacon Hill is also home to Acorn Street, which is said to be the most photographed street in Boston, and it's not hard to see why. Number 6. Taste your way through the North End. Boston's Little Italy will welcome you with aromas of freshly baked bread and simmering sauce. The North End neighborhood stands as Boston's oldest residential area and invites visitors to discover its Italian heritage and historic charm. Here you'll find some of the best restaurants in Boston. It's also a great place to take a food tour. You'll also find impressive historical sites, such as the Paul Revere house, with 90% of its internal structure preserved from 1680. Number 7. Visit the Museum of Fine Arts. Step into one of the world's most complete art museums, where you can find nearly 500,000 masterpieces. The museum's amazing collections will take you on an artistic journey across centuries and continents. You'll find the largest collection of Monet's work outside of France, and this incredible museum also showcases more than 21,000 artworks from the Middle Ages through the mid-20th century, and one of the largest collections of Japanese art outside of Japan. Number 8. Explore the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. This stunning museum looks like something straight out of Venice, with architecture inspired by a 15th century palace. Inside, Isabella Stewart Gardner curated an incredible collection of over 7,500 artworks, rare books, and artifacts from around the world, including treasures from ancient Rome, Renaissance Italy, and 19th century France. It's easily one of the most beautiful and unique places to visit in Boston. You'll also notice 13 empty frames hanging ominously from the walls. In 1990, 2 thieves dressed as police officers pulled off one of the biggest art heists in history right here, stealing 13 masterpieces worth over $500 million. The museum refuses to remove the empty frames, hoping that one day the missing art will return. Number 9. Visit the Boston Public Library. The Boston Public Library isn't just a library, it's a work of art and a treasure trove of history. Home to over 23 million items, it's one of the largest collections in the country, filled with incredible finds like first edition Shakespeare folios, Mozart's original music scores, and even President John Adams' personal library. You can explore rare manuscripts, letters, and drawings dating back to the 10th century, making this a must-visit spot for book lovers and history buffs alike. Number 10. Take a harbor cruise. Set sail on a memorable journey through Boston's historic waters, where maritime history meets modern adventure. A harbor cruise offers some of the best views of the city's skyline and landmarks. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Now, there's no shortage of ways to explore the harbor, whether you're in the mood for a classic sightseeing tour, a relaxing sunset sail, a dinner cruise, or even a whale watching adventure. I'll link to all the options in the video description so you can choose your perfect experience. Number 11. Hop on a duck tour. Boston Duck Tours give you a one-of-a-kind adventure in a vintage World War II vehicle that goes from street to water. These fun tours blend history and humor with splashing fun, making them one of the best things to do in Boston. You'll cruise past many of the landmarks mentioned in this video, like the Boston Common, State House, and Faneuil Hall. You'll hear stories about the Boston Massacre and Paul Revere's midnight ride before the big splash into the Charles River. Number 12. Enjoy View Boston. View Boston lets you float above the city's historic streets with breathtaking panoramas from the top of the iconic Prudential Tower. This 360-degree observation deck gives you unmatched views of the city's growing skyline and historic landmarks. Morning visits give photographers the clearest views, while nighttime shows off Boston's lit-up architecture beautifully. Number 13. Visit Harvard and MIT. Just across the river from Boston, you'll find Harvard and MIT nestled in charming Cambridge. Harvard, America's oldest university, established in 1636, sits proudly alongside MIT, which has been pushing the boundaries of science and innovation since 1861. Weekdays are a great time to visit. That's when tours run, and most buildings are open. While both campuses welcome visitors to explore outdoor spaces in public areas, some buildings are reserved for students and faculty only. Number 14. Take a day tour to Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard. These historic islands blend coastal beauty with centuries of heritage that add depth to your Boston adventure. If you're taking a day trip from Boston, the easiest way to do this is to take a tour that will transport you from your hotel to the ferry. I'll link to them in the description. On both islands, you'll find great shopping, beaches, and dining options. However, a day trip to Nantucket offers a more remote, upscale, and historic feel with cobblestone streets and high-end boutiques, while Martha's Vineyard provides a more diverse, laid-back experience with multiple towns, scenic beaches, and colorful gingerbread cottages. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this fun things to do in Boston video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more travel content like this.